Hey, it's Sol, and this is part 2 of my series that takes a look back at the technological advancements that shaped World of Warcraft to what it is today. Part 1 is out, and you can click somewhere at the bottom or on the side or however. Maybe I'll make a playlist with all the other videos on it. As a reminder, this is a pretty arbitrary list. I made up all the criteria for what qualifies as an advancement. So, as much as gems had changed the game, to me they're just enchanting slots and I'm not going to mention them any further. So let's go. The Burning Crusade is WoW's first expansion, and like all others that will come after it, there are a few technological additions along with improvements and major shifts on existing systems. PvP continues to grow with this expansion, but more than that, we're introduced to a slew of new PvE features geared towards the less hardcore players. Flight ain't what I'd call new tech. It's pretty much swimming outside of water at high speeds, but the introduction of flight came with something else: physical restrictions. Areas of Outland use natural barriers to prevent players from accessing them unless they possessed either flight capability or a warlock summon. Flight bottlenecks continue to pop up in places like Icecrown and Deepholm. Even the starting experience for Mists of Pandaria required flight to get to your faction's airship. Apart from Warlords, each expansion included max level areas that were only accessible with this capability. And as of this recording, we're not certain if all of the Broken Isles in Legion can be explored from the ground. An alpha invite would make a welcome difference. Arenas were launched as a structured alternative to World PvP, and a more direct show of skill compared to Battlegrounds. With it came arena teams, ratings, and a seasonal reward system. Arenas continue to thrive to this day, although without the teams, and numerous esport events have been hosted by leagues and by Blizzard itself. It was the first of several shifts in design where Blizzard reduced the maximum size of PvE raids to 25 from 40. Going forward, raid compositions followed the loose format of 2 tanks, 5 healers, and 18 damage dealers. The debate for ideal raid size would go on for years, affecting the way raids are approached from one expansion to the next. Years passed before new tech became available that turned this argument upside down, solving some problems and creating others. Guild banks were introduced to both legitimize the value of being part of an organized guild, but more importantly, all but stopped the account sharing of bank alts for a guild. It would be years before more guild-related utility was added to the game. There were a ton of dungeons introduced during Classic WoW, but only a handful of them were run repeatedly at max level. Dungeon design has since taken a big turn, and it started in Burning Crusade with heroic dungeons. This tech was a clever way of taking leveling dungeons and repurposing them as max level content. Heroics are one of the pillars of non-raid PvE content, offering a challenge to players but be repeated day after day thanks to other systems I'll mention in a bit. But there was a cost to this new paradigm. Dungeons were now designed to be shorter and more structured to make the dungeon experience consistent. On the flip side, bosses have become more and more complex over time, with more recent dungeon bosses being as complex as early raid bosses. The sustainability of heroics eventually led to the slow revamp of dungeons missed from Classic WoW, including the Dead Mines, Scarlet Monastery, and Skullomance. Daily quests, or dailies, were one of the other pillars of non-raid content that players could commit to at max level. In its infancy, there was a daily quest limit of 10, and players had to choose what faction or reward to dedicate their time to. Later in the Burning Crusade, as new factions were added, the daily limit was increased to 25, allowing a lot more breathing room for players who felt limited in their choices in the face of so many quests. The PvE point system began here in the Burning Crusade with the introduction of Badges of Justice. This, alongside dailies and heroics, make up the kind of foundation of non-raid progression, and stands to this day. The system would go through many iterations, bringing in badges and emblems and points and crystals and what have you. Both raid and non-raid PvE content revolved around these currencies, creating subsystems and metagames to maximize how much you could earn and what best to spend it on. Short video, huh? That's the goal! Woo! Thank you for joining me on this short trip down memory lane. I'm Sol, and I'll see you later. Stay breezy.